Today's lesson is topic writing, picture writing. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
And it's our topic writing unit for the month of March. Just in time because today is the last day of March, so we're going to kind of squeeze it in here before April appears around the corner. And today we're going to try something interesting. We've got some pictures here. We've got 4 pictures depicting a scene in each of the pictures. And you are to try to write an essay based on these pictures. So look at these pictures and figure out how you're going to describe them and how you're going to write a narrative based on these illustrations.
好，我们这个月的主题是写作，是要来练习连环图写作。同学们在碰到这一类看图写作的题型时，记得一定要仔细观察图片。你可以利用这些 WH 疑问词，我们说的5个 W 1个 H， 像 Who, What, When, Where, Why, How， 用这些疑问，然后去掌握你这个图片的细节，然后再根据图片所提供的讯息来描述故事。写的时候啊，一定要留意每个图片之间的关联性。不能离题哦。那我们现在就是要写出涵盖每张图片又合乎逻辑又有完整结局的故事。同学们来发挥你的想象力吧。那我们接着来练习写作吧。
Okay, so first of all, we're going to ask you a question. What did the woman hear? Where were the noises coming from? So in the first picture, you can see that there is a woman sitting on a sofa and she's holding a magazine, but on the wall there, we can see some indications that there is some kind of sound coming from the next room, and she is thinking that she hears someone crying. It looks like a little girl there crying and is upset about something, and also the woman on the sofa seems to be upset about something. So, yes, indeed, the question is, what did the woman hear? Where were the noises coming from?
好，我们现在来看这4张图片。先看到第一张图片哦，你就可以先想想看，图片的主角是谁，然后他在哪里，然后发生了什么事。那我们就看到一名女子，她好像是坐在家里的沙发，然后听到隔壁传来巨大的声音，还有听到小孩的哭声，然后她的手上好像有拿着类似杂志或文件的东西。那这些细节同学们都可以用想象力去把它串起来，没有问题，只是记得要是合理的描述哦。那我们现在先来练习写写看，说诶，这个女生她有没有听到什么？她听到什么呢？我们来看看她课文怎么写。
Yeah, here it says the woman heard a loud banging sound coming from next door. So she probably lives in an apartment building, and there's an apartment next to hers, so she can hear banging coming from next door. So no sooner had she sat down. As soon as she sat down, she started to hear a loud banging sound. Bang, 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 coming from next door. Maybe somebody was trying to kill a rat, or they were trying to beat the wall for whatever reason, or maybe somebody was just practicing playing their bass drum for the marching band.
好，我们来看看这边，我们可以很简单就直接回答说，这名女子她听到一声巨响是从隔壁传来的。那你这时候你其实也可以善用一些连接词，让你的情节发展是更流畅或是更紧凑，让这个读者很想要继续看，有那种悬疑感，对不对？所以你就可以讲说，那名女子她一坐下就听到隔壁传来一声巨响，那个就很有画面，一坐下就听到 bang 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 的那种声音。好，那我们接着也来练习写写看哦。如果你想要让你的情节是那种更紧凑、更有画面、更有刺激感的话，其实也可以善加利用分词构句。那像这边呢，你就可以用说，他听到一声巨响，紧接着就是吓坏了小女生的尖叫声，然后从隔壁传过来。所以就是想象这个画面就突然来了 bang bang bang， 然后又突然来了尖叫声，这样接连着下来，我们用分词构句让这个句子更精简，然后让读者有那种很刺激的感觉。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们说可以怎么写写看这练习的句子。
Yep, here you can give it a try. For example, the woman was making herself comfortable on the couch when she heard a loud bang, followed by the sound of a child crying coming from the apartment next door. So this is what happens when you get home from work, you want to make yourself comfortable on the couch or on the sofa. You might also say this to guests. Oh, please come in. Make yourselves at home. Make yourself comfortable. But she was making herself comfortable on the couch, and then she heard a loud bang. And that's a word we use to describe a loud sound if something's falling on the floor or if a gun is being fired. Bang, bang. And then that was followed by the sound of a child crying. Wah, wah, wah. And the sound of the crying child was coming from the apartment next door. Usually there are different sounds coming from next door, like the sound of people having a party or singing karaoke or something like that. But today it's different. It sounds like a child is crying over there. Uh-oh, it might be a case of child abuse.
好，我们刚刚就用到这个坐在舒服的沙发上，跟那个传来 bang 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 的声音就很有对比的感觉。好，那接着我们要看到第二张图片，你就会去想想看说，那他听到这个巨响，然后听到小女孩的哭喊声啊，图片当中这个女生她会有什么想法？她会假设发生了什么事情呢？我们来看看。
Okay, so our next question is, what conclusion did the woman jump to? She's not getting off the sofa and jumping up and down here because she's scared for the little girl. If you jump to conclusions, that means you try to answer a question too quickly and you don't have enough information, you don't have enough facts. So she did hear some banging and she did hear a child screaming. So she has jumped to the conclusion that the child is probably being beaten or being abused or something like that. And yes, indeed, here's the conclusion. The man next door must be beating that poor girl, she thought to herself.
好，听到这个很大声的可能是家具被破坏啊，或者是墙壁嘣嘣嘣或什么，然后你又听到小孩哭声，你会直觉认为好像是不是有家暴事件发生的呢？那我们现在就来写写看，就是说他意思是说，这个女生呢，她就会认为说隔壁有发生的这个家暴事件，她心里是这么想的，她觉得隔壁的男子一定是在打那个可怜的女孩。好，那我们也来练习写写看哦，你也可以说这些声响啊，可能就只意味着一件事情，就是那名糟糕的男子他一定是在打他女儿，所以你可以说 These sounds can only mean one thing， 这些声响啊只能意味着只代表着一件事情，就是发生家暴事件了啦。好，那我们请 Roger 老师帮我们讲讲看说我们可以怎么练习写这个句子。
Give it a try. It says here, these sounds can only mean one thing, she thought.That awful man must be beating his daughter. So, yes, indeed, the sounds can only mean one thing. That is the conclusion that she has made. She has jumped to a conclusion, and this is what she thinks, or at least what she thought at the time. That awful man must be beating his daughter. Ooh, how terrible.
然后你听到这个家暴事件，你会有什么样的反应呢？有些人可能就冷冷的就待在家里想说，反正隔壁家的事不关我的事。但有些人就会觉得不行，这种事情一定要赶快报警处理。我们来看看这个女生她是怎么反应。我们看到图片，她是不是准备报警了呢？好，那我们来看看课文范例怎么写。
Yep, if you look at the picture, it looks like she's getting on the phone and she's calling 110 to call the police. Well, the woman picked up her phone and called the police.
好，那现在呢，我们看到课文范例就是写到说，这名女子呢，她拿起电话报警。那这时候呢，你只是说她拿起电话报警，这样好像没有特别的感觉。如果你再加上跟时间有关的修饰语，你可以用 right away 或者是 immediately 等等，去加强那个事件紧急性，说她立刻就打电话报警。那我们现在也可以去练习写写看，你也可以表达出这个女生她是下定决心，我一定要伸张正义那种感觉。你用 determined 这个字，下决心的，决心要去帮助那个可怜的女孩。这个女生呢，她就立刻报警去通报这个事件。那我们来看看还可以怎么写。
Yep, you can give it a try. Determined to help the poor girl, the woman immediately called the police and reported the incident. So she was determined to help the poor girl. She really wanted to do this. She was going to do it, and she didn't want anybody to stop her. So she wanted to help out that poor girl. So she right away got on the phone. She called the police, and she reported the incident. Hey, I'm sitting at my home here, I'm on my sofa, and I hear some loud banging and some screaming from next door, so I should call you guys, and maybe you should send somebody over here to take a look at the situation.
好，那我们这边补充一下，你可以用 report the incident to the police 去表达说向警方来通报这个事件的意思。好，那接着我们就要进入图片3、图片4，我们就看到警察来了，然后开门之后发现什么事情呢？我们来看看课文怎么写。
So in picture 3 there, you see the cops, the police.They have arrived and they're knocking on the door, and then the door opens and they look inside the room and they see what has happened. So yes, we're asking this question, what did the police find when they went to investigate the disturbance? If you have a disturbance, that means something is unusual, someone's making noise, there's been a crash, there's been an accident, it means somebody has been disturbed.
好，这边用到这个 disturbance 它就有那种骚动骚乱的意思。那我们来看看就是说警察开门之后，他就看到是一名男子呢，他正拿着一个扫把在追着蜘蛛，然后你看到另一个画面就是一个小女孩，她站在沙发上看起来很害怕。那我们也可以去发挥想象力去补充一些细节，让这个故事更生动。
Yep, and here's what the police found when they went to investigate the disturbance.The police saw a man chasing a spider with a broom and a scared little girl standing on the sofa. So the man was not beating the child at all. Actually, the man was trying to beat a spider with a broom. And I'm kind of surprised here because it took the man so long. And in the picture, the spider is still very much alive. So I would say that man is very poor. He's very lame at killing spiders. And the little girl has been scared for a very, very long time. She's standing on the sofa trying to keep away from the spider. When the door swung open, the police officers saw a frustrated man chasing an enormous spider with a broom. He looked up and gave them an embarrassed smile before gesturing toward his daughter, who was standing on the couch. She's terrified of spiders, he explained. So, indeed, that's how you can write this out. When the door swung open, when the door was opened, the police officers looked inside and they saw a man who was frustrated because he had not succeeded in killing that spider. He had been chasing that spider around the room for a long time, and it was an enormous spider, very big.And, of course, the man had a broom, which you used to sweep the floor, and he was embarrassed. He gave them an embarrassed smile, and then he gestured or pointed toward his daughter. See, that's why she's screaming. She's terrified of spiders.
同学们可以自己加一些想象的细节。你可以想象这个男生他怎么花了这么多的时间都还没有打到那只蜘蛛呢？然后这女生是不是怎么样吓坏了呢？然后一开门的时候，这个女子呢，本来图片中这个女子她看到警察，然后再看到这个尴尬的男生在微笑的画面是什么样反应，这些细节我们都可以加上去，然后让你的故事更完整。好，那我们现在就练习完写作，要准备进入第2部分的范文咯。
Okay, now we've got an example essay to share with you, again, based on these 4 pictures. So here's an example essay, and we're going to entitle this essay, A Huge Misunderstanding. If there's a misunderstanding, that means somebody doesn't understand the situation correctly. Okay, so maybe, for example, my girlfriend saw me with another woman, and she thought, hey, you're cheating on me. And I said, no, it's a misunderstanding. That's just my coworker, and we're on a work assignment. Okay, so that's a misunderstanding. It's not the way you think it is.
好，我们来看一下这个标题写到 A huge misunderstanding。我们来看 misunderstanding 就是误会、误解的意思。那它的字首 mis 这个部分，它可以表达不好、错误或是缺乏等等那种否定、不适宜的意思。那么 miss 错误，再加上 understanding 了解、理解，把它合在一起 ，misunderstanding 就是误解的意思了。
That's right. Now, here are the contents of our essay for today. Exhausted after a long day at work, Erin was looking forward to relaxing with a magazine she had picked up on the way home. So she's exhausted. Her job is exhausting, so she feels very, very tired after a long day at work. So she picked up a magazine and was looking forward to relaxing on the sofa and reading the magazine. But no sooner had she sat down than she heard a loud banging sound coming from next door. So no sooner had she sat down. As soon as she sat down, she heard a loud banging sound coming from next door. That does not sound good. Then she heard what sounded like the screams of a terrified little girl. Maybe the cries as well. Screams are ah! And cries are so they're a little similar, but they're a little different. But she heard screams there of a little girl who was terrified, which means she was very, very scared. She was frightened. If you're terrified, of course, you're probably more scared than frightened, but indeed you are very scared. And the sound, of course, was bang. And the screaming, of course, got louder because the bangs kept continuing. Bang, bang, bang. And Erin felt her blood boil. If you're very angry about something, then you could say this. Ooh, my blood boiled when my husband said that mean thing to me. It was a terrible thing for him to say. So my blood was boiling. And, of course, here, Erin was no idiot, okay? She's smart. She knows what's going on. An idiot, of course, is a dumb person. A fool, indeed. So she's no fool. She's no idiot. And she concludes, or remember, she jumped to the conclusion that the man next door must be beating that poor girl. And that's what she thought to herself.
好，我们来看看这边呢，单字 exhausted， 它是用来表达非常疲累的，比 tired 那个程度还要更多，就是非常精疲力尽、非常疲惫的。然后 terrified 这个过去分词是可以用来形容它是吓坏的。那我们这边要补充一下，就是说课文它还有用到 no sooner had she sat down than 点点点去表达她一坐下就怎么样，这是个倒装用法。我们如果把这个句子还原，会写作She had no sooner sat down than 点点点，只是说课文它把这个有否定意思的用语 no sooner 摆到句首之后，你后方的子句就必须进行倒装，所以我们把这个助动词 had 移到 she 的前面了。好，再来还有看到 blood boil， 好，字面的意思就是说血液沸腾，也不是说热血沸腾，是你太生气，整个血都在沸腾的感觉，所以这个用语是在形容说人是他是非常愤怒，怒火中烧。我们常常会用 make somebody's blood boil 去表达使某人怒火中烧的意思哦。
Okay, so that's about halfway through the article here. Let's continue. Remember, she jumped to the conclusion that the man must be beating that poor girl and she has to do something. So, wasting no time, she picked up her phone and called the police. So, indeed, she did this right away. She did not waste any time. Wasting no time, she got on the phone and called the police. And when the police answered the phone, she could hardly contain the flow of words, or she could hardly contain herself. We say that when you can't really control yourself, she could hardly contain herself. Oh, I can't contain myself. Tell me what happened. I'm dying to know. But here she could hardly contain the flow of words. Yeah, a neighbor, awful noises, screaming, sounded terrified. Come quickly. So, of course, she was very upset. She was worried about the little girl. So, of course, she was not speaking coherently. So, it was just a whole bunch of words. And she was just trying to describe the situation in a quick way. Oh, yes, awful noises, screaming, and the girl sounded terrified. You got to come quickly or else the little girl will be in trouble. And then the police immediately dispatched a unit and Erin tried to calm herself. Now, of course, if you work for the police and you answer the phone, you will get on the radio and send a police unit out to the scene of the crime. So that's what this person does. They dispatch these things. That person is called a dispatcher. They send people out on missions and stuff like that. They receive phone calls and they send officers where they're needed. So yes, that's the dispatcher, and then what they do is dispatch units. So the police were dispatched to the scene of the crime, and then Erin tried to calm herself after she made that phone call, and she waited for what seemed like an eternity. An eternity, of course, is a very, very long time, and then she heard a knocking on the neighbor's door. Open up in there, this is the police! So, of course, she waited for that. There was a knock on the door, and then, of course, the crime was solved.
好，我们来看一下好生动的描述哦。我们先来看一下刚刚课文有写到说 wasting no time 怎么样怎么样。这个 waste no time 字面意思就是没有浪费时间嘛，一点时间都没浪费，就表示你是立刻马上去做某事。再来我们看到一个补充单字是 dispatch， 它是表达派遣发送。我们用到 dispatch a unit 就是表达派遣的一支小队。这个 unit 在这边当名词是表达说它可能是有特定目的的那种小队。
Okay, let's continue here. Keen to see justice done, she peered out of her doorway. So if you're keen to do something, it means you really want to do something. She really wanted to see justice done. She wanted to see the bad guy punished and arrested by the police. So she peered out of her doorway. To peer means to look at something, especially if you're kind of sneaking a peek at something.But what she saw was not at all the sight she had expected. She expected to see maybe a poor abused girl with bruises on her arms because the man was beating her with a baseball bat or something like that. And in the living room was a man chasing a large spider and bringing a broom down upon it with such force that the furniture shook. So that's a very vivid description here. We've got a man chasing a large spider and he's bringing the broom down, which means he's beating the broom down toward the floor. A broom, of course, is something you use to sweep the floor. And, of course, he hit the spider, or at least tried to hit the spider with the broom so hard that all the furniture shook. The tables, the chairs, the sofa, etc. And standing on the couch was a terrified little girl, her eyes fixated on the horrible insect, screaming...at the top of her lungs. If you're screaming at the top of your lungs or yelling at the top of your lungs, that means you're screaming as loud as you can. And her eyes were fixated on the horrible insect. If you're fixated, that means you're just glued to that thing. You're not looking at anything else. So even though she's scared, at least she was not beaten.
好，我们最后来补充一下，最后一个句子里面有一个补充单字是 fixate， 这个字后面常常会接 on 或是 upon 再加受词去表达说注视。那它除了可以表达凝视，一直盯着看，也可以去表达说可能是一直想着某事，一直把注意力放在某事物上面，而去带有这种纠结于什么、执着于某事的意思哦。然后还有一个用语是 at the top of one's lungs， 这个片语字面意思是说在肺部的顶端，那它是用来形容一个人是声嘶力竭的用尽全力大吼，那常就会搭配像 shout、yell、cry 等等的动词。
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our example essay for today. So you can write something similar to that when you look at those 4 pictures and you try to write an essay based on those pictures. We wish you the best of luck, and I'm confident that your writing ability will improve as a result. That brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Thank you so much for joining us. From all of us here at All Plus Interactive English, my name is Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.